She turned a single talk show into a global empire of media, philanthropy, and influence. But what if Oprah Winfrey's story is more than just a rags to riches tale? What if it's a masterclass in a specific kind of biblical calling? Born into poverty in rural Mississippi, Oprah Winfrey's early life was marked by hardship and instability. Yet a defining gift emerged, an innate ability to connect through conversation. Her breakthrough came not in New York or Los Angeles, but in the heartland. In 1983, she took over a struggling, third-rated Chicago morning talk show, AM Chicago. Within months, her raw empathy and authentic style turned it into the city's top program. A year later, it was renamed The Oprah Winfrey Show. For 25 seasons, she didn't just host television, she redefined it. She moved the culture from sensational tabloid TV to meaningful, vulnerable dialogue about life, loss, and purpose. She built unprecedented trust with a daily audience of millions. But here's the pivot from star to icon. She owned her work. In 1986, she founded Harpo Productions, Oprah spelled backward, becoming one of the first women in history to own her own show and studio. She multiplied that single program into a vast empire, a groundbreaking magazine, the Oprah Magazine, a radio network, a film and television production powerhouse, and her own cable network, OWN. Beyond media, her influence multiplied through her book club, turning unknown authors into bestsellers overnight, and her favorite things, which could make or break products. Her philanthropy, most notably through the Oprah Winfrey Leadership Academy for Girls in South Africa, cemented her legacy as a builder of futures. From a local news anchor to the architect of a global brand rooted in empowerment, Oprah's journey is the modern archetype of influence created, owned, and multiplied. She didn't just climb a ladder, she built an entirely new ecosystem. Today we're analyzing Oprah not just as a celebrity, but through the MKP lens, as a multiplier of her minas, a king in her domain, and a priest to millions. Her story gives us a tangible blueprint for our own assignments. By the end, you'll see how her principles, rooted in stewardship, leadership, and bridge building, can be applied to your boardroom, your startup, or your team. Oprah, the multiplier. From one talk show to a billion-dollar return, identifying Oprah's minas, the gifts, platform, and trust she was given. In the parable of the minas, a master entrusts his servants with a sum of money, saying, "Put this money to work until I come back." For Oprah, her master, her calling, her circumstance, entrusted her with three distinct minas. She didn't create these from nothing. They were the raw capital of her destiny. 1. The talent, the innate gift. An unparalleled gift for empathetic communication and connection. This wasn't just being a good talker. This was a spiritual and emotional radar. Her mina was the ability to listen with her whole being, to make guests and audiences feel seen, heard, and understood at a profound level. It was the talent to translate complex human emotions into relatable stories and to forge an intimate bond through a camera lens. This was her primary, God-given currency. 2. The opportunity, the strategic platform. A failing local talk show, AM Chicago. In 1983, this show was a mina buried in the ground, underperforming, lacking identity. To many it was a liability, but to a faithful steward, it was pure opportunity, a blank canvas, a daily time slot on a major network affiliate, and a low point from which any improvement would be dramatic. It was the little she was put in charge of, the test of her faithfulness. 3. The resource, the earned trust. Initial audience credibility and relatability. Before fame, she built relational capital. Her early career in local news and her authentic, sometimes tearful, on-air demeanor in Baltimore created a resource more valuable than startup cash. Authentic credibility. People perceived her as real and trustworthy in an industry often seen as slick and insincere. This trust was the seed capital she would reinvest in every future venture. It was the faithfulness in little that earned her the right to be entrusted with more. The MKP lens. A true multiplier doesn't complain about the size or state of their minas. They accurately identify, acknowledge, and take responsibility for them. Oprah received one great talent, one shaky opportunity, and a small account of trust. Her genius began in recognizing that this was enough to begin the work. The multiplication strategy, faithful in little, how she revolutionized daytime TV by shifting from sensationalism to authenticity, the little change with massive impact. Strategic investment, reinvesting success into new ventures, Harpo Productions, owning her content, O Magazine, owning her voice, Own Network, owning her platform. Scaling influence, moving from host to curator, producer, and mogul. She didn't just host a show, she built an ecosystem that amplifies messages, books via book club, experts via her stage, products via her favorites. Core multiplier principle, she took her core talent, connection, and her initial platform, and through wise, faithful stewardship, generated a hundredfold return in influence and equity. The multiplication strategy, from faithful steward to cultural architect. Oprah's story isn't just about success. It's a masterclass in strategic multiplication, the process of taking identified meanness and generating a supernatural return. Her strategy followed a clear three-phase blueprint. Phase 1, faithful in the little, the revolution of authenticity. When handed the failing AM Chicago, the expected low-risk path was to copy the sensational, conflict-driven format of competitors. Instead, Oprah made a counterintuitive, faith-filled investment. She invested her core talent, empathy, directly into the format itself. The investment. She swapped theatrical confrontations for vulnerable conversation. She shared her own struggles on air, making the show a dialogue, not a spectacle. The return, this little change, choosing authenticity over theatrics, generated an immediate hundredfold return in audience loyalty and ratings. It proved a foundational kingdom principle. Faithfulness with integrity in a small arena is the divine prerequisite for greater authority. She didn't just get a better show, she created a new genre of empathetic media. Phase 2, strategic reinvestment. Owning the means of production. A foolish steward spends the return on consumption. A wise multiplier reinvests it to own the system. Oprah plowed the profits from her unprecedented TV success back into assets that secured her long-term dominion. Harpo Productions, 1986. This was the pivotal move from talent to owner. By owning her show and its content, she stopped being a commodity for a network and became the architect of her own enterprise. This was building the house instead of just renting a room. The Oprah Magazine, 2000. She reinvested her voice and trust into a tangible monthly platform. This wasn't just a magazine, it was a direct covenant with her audience's aspirations, extending her daily influence into their homes and mindsets 24/7. Own Network, 2011. The ultimate reinvestment, owning the distribution platform itself. After mastering content and voice, she built her own city, a dedicated channel for her vision of inspirational programming. Phase 3, scaling influence. Building an ecosystem of amplification. True multiplication moves beyond linear growth into exponential ecosystem impact. Oprah stopped being just a host and became a curator, amplifier, and mogul. The Oprah's Book Club, with a single announcement, she could shift the literary landscape, turning unknown authors into millionaires. She multiplied her platform to serve and amplify other voices. Oprah's favorite things. She leveraged her trusted credibility to create a cultural marketplace where her endorsement could make or break products and businesses. The expert stage. Her show became the ultimate platform for thought leaders, from spiritual teachers to financial gurus, multiplying their reach through her trusted conduit. Core multiplier principle, the stewardship flywheel. Oprah took her core talent, connection, and her initial platform, the show, and through wise, faithful stewardship, did not just add to them, she created a self-reinforcing flywheel. Authenticity built trust. Trust built an audience. The audience built equity. Equity was reinvested into ownership. Ownership secured freedom. Freedom allowed for greater authenticity and impact. She didn't just earn more money, she generated a hundredfold return in influence, equity, and cultural authority. This is the multiplier's reward, not just the fruit, but the everlasting orchard. Oprah, the king. Dominion in the domain of media and meaning. Establishing the domain of inspirational media and personal empowerment. Exercising godly dominion, vision and governance. She didn't follow industry trends, she set them. She governed her set, her company, and her brand with a clear value system. Empowerment over exploitation. Ethical authority. Built trust as a kingly virtue. Her authority comes from perceived integrity and consistency. What Oprah says, I trust. Order and creation. Created a new kingdom within media, a space ruled by the values of growth, healing, and possibility. She expelled the chaos of toxic talk shows from her realm. The King's Challenge. Faced kings of other domains, traditional media moguls, critics, and established her own. Enduring rule by being undeniable in her unique offering. A king is not just someone with power, but someone who establishes rightful rule, order, and flourishing within a defined domain. Oprah's kingdom was not geographical, it was conceptual and emotional. She claimed dominion over the territory of inspirational media and personal empowerment, and she ruled it with a blend of visionary clarity and ethical authority rarely seen. Establishing the domain, a kingdom of meaning. While others ruled domains of entertainment, gossip, or news, Oprah surveyed the cultural landscape and planted her flag on uncharted ground. Her domain became the intersection of media, spirituality, self-help, and emotional intelligence. She declared through her content that television could be a place not of escape, but of transformation. This was her sphere of assignment, and she took full responsibility for its governance. Exercising godly dominion, the marks of her reign won. Vision and governance, the law of empowerment. A king sets the law of the land. Oprah's first and foremost law was empowerment over exploitation, governance of content. She banned the chaotic, humiliating spectacle that defined 90s talk shows. Her set was governed by a different standard, one of dignity, even in conflict. Governance of culture. She built Harpo Productions not just as a company, but as a city operating under her values, reportedly marked by intense loyalty, high expectations, and a mission-driven environment. She didn't follow trends. Her authentic vision became the trend that others scrambled to copy. 2. Ethical authority, the currency of trust. In the kingdom of media, authority is often based on ratings, shock, or access. Oprah built her authority on a kingly virtue, trust. Her authority was relational, not just positional. The famous phrase, "What Oprah says I trust," is the ultimate testament to her kingly rule. A king's subjects follow not just out of fear, but out of belief in the king's character and commitment to their good. This trust was earned through consistency. For decades, she governed her platform with a predictable integrity, championing the marginalized, advocating for education, and promoting personal accountability. Her word had weight because her actions had integrity. 3. Order and creation, expelling chaos, instituting shalom. Where there was fragmentation, she created cohesion. Where there was cynical chaos in daytime TV, she instituted a form of shalom, wholeness, peace, and possibility. She didn't just host a show, she created a curated, safe space where difficult truths could be explored with the goal of healing. This was an act of creative dominion. She brought order to the publishing world through her book club, acting as a curator king who told her kingdom, "This is worthy of your time and mind." The King's Challenge, battle and legacy. No king establishes a domain without a fight. Oprah faced rival kings, the kings of traditional media, who dismissed her empathetic style as soft or unsustainable. The kings of cynicism, critics who labeled her work as mere pop psychology or commercialized inspiration. Her defense was not to attack their kingdoms, but to make her own kingdom so vibrant so prosperous and so undeniable that its walls stood firm. She proved that a domain ruled by empowerment could be more powerful and enduring than one ruled by ridicule. She didn't conquer their land. She made her own land the one everyone wanted to visit. The MKP lens. A king in their domain doesn't merely have a job. They have a throne of responsibility. They see chaos and institute order. They receive influence and wield it with ethical authority. They face challengers and solidify their rule not by force, but by the undeniable fruitfulness of their realm. Oprah shows us that godly dominion is about stewarding a platform to create a culture where people can truly flourish. Oprah, the priest, the bridge between struggle and hope. The priestly function to stand between the human experience, pain, confusion, aspiration, and a place of grace, truth, and healing. Oprah as a bridge, creating sacred space. Her interview style transformed a TV set into a confessional and a counseling room. The famous couch became an altar for vulnerability and truth-telling. Mediating values, she translated complex spiritual and self-help principles from guests like Eckhart Tolle, Brené Brown, into accessible language for everyday people. Bringing healing, consistently used her platform to bear the burdens of others, giving voice to the abused, marginalized, and struggling. Her public struggles with weight and trauma created solidarity, not spectacle. Prophetic voice often spoke truth to power and named cultural dysfunctions, calling audiences to higher standards of self-worth and responsibility. The priest analysis, the bridge between struggle and hope. The priest stands in the gap. Their function is not to rule from a distant throne, but to mediate, to intercede, and to bridge the profound distance between the harsh reality of human experience and the transformative potential of grace, truth, and healing. Oprah's most transcendent role was operating in this priestly office, using a global media platform to perform ancient, sacred duties. Oprah as a bridge, the fourfold ministry of a media priest one. Creating sacred space, the set as a sanctuary. In a medium built on performance, she engineered intimacy. Her interview style dismantled barriers, transforming a brightly lit TV set into what felt like a confessional, a counseling room, or a living room heart-to-heart. The altar of the couch. That famous couch was more than furniture. It was consecrated ground. It was where guests like a traumatized Michael Jackson or a grieving Tina Turner brought their pain and found not an interrogator, but a witness. She practiced active listening as a form of reverence, making space for truth to be spoken and honored. This created a secular sanctuary where vulnerability was safe. 2. Mediating values. Translating the transcendent. A priest interprets holy text for the people. Oprah took complex, often abstract spiritual and psychological wisdom from elite thinkers and made it accessible, practical, and actionable for millions. She mediated the teachings of Eckhart Tolle on presence, of Brené Brown on vulnerability, of Dr. Phil on accountability, and of Maya Angelou on resilience. She asked the clarifying question, what does that look like in our daily lives? She was a master translator, turning PhD-level concepts into language for the single mother, the struggling entrepreneur, and the searching student, acting as a conduit for wisdom that could heal and empower. 3. Bringing healing, bearing burdens, and building solidarity. The priest carries the concerns of the people. Oprah consistently used her platform to bear the burdens, Galatians 6:2, of the hurting. She gave her show as a megaphone for the voiceless, survivors of abuse, people battling addiction, those marginalized by society. She didn't just report on pain, she created ceremonies of healing around it. Crucially, she entered into the suffering herself. By publicly grappling with her own shame around weight, childhood trauma, and self-doubt, she didn't become a spectacle. Instead, she created sacred solidarity. She said, "You are not alone. I am in the struggle with you." This shared vulnerability was a powerful priestly act of healing. 4. Prophetic voice, naming dysfunction and calling to account. A priest also has a prophetic duty, to speak truth to power and to call the community back to its higher values. Oprah regularly named cultural sicknesses, like the glorification of victimhood, the poison of gossip, or the lie that material wealth equals happiness. Her famous admonition, "You are responsible for your own life," was a prophetic call to personal accountability and empowerment. She challenged her audience to move from passive consumption to active creation of their destinies, calling them up to a higher standard of self-worth and responsibility. The MKP lens, priesthood beyond the walls. Oprah embodied that priesthood is not confined to a pulpit. Her ministry happened on a soundstage, in a magazine, through a book club. She shows us that the priestly calling is for anyone who stands between a broken reality and a hopeful possibility. Are you the manager who creates a sacred space for honest feedback on your team? Creating sanctuary. Are you the professional who translates complex industry jargon for clients? Mediating values. Do you use your influence to advocate for someone who can't advocate for themselves? Bearing burdens. Do you speak up against unethical practices in your workplace? Prophetic voice. Oprah's legacy teaches us that to be a priest is to build bridges between pain and healing, between confusion and understanding, between who people are and who they are called to be. Her platform was her parish, and her empathy was her liturgy. Biblical alignment, illuminating the principles multiplier, parable of the minas, talents, Luke 19, Matthew 25. You were faithful with a little, I will put you in charge of much. Oprah's story is a modern narrative of this principle. King Esther 4:14. For such a time as this, Oprah's dominion in media positioned her uniquely to advocate, uplift, and shift culture at a pivotal time. Priest, 2 Corinthians 5:20. Earthen vessels, 2 Corinthians 4:7. Ambassador, she acted as an ambassador for concepts of healing and reconciliation. Treasure in jars of clay, her personal transparency about her flawed, earthen vessel past gave greater power to the treasure of hope she offered. She called forth treasure in her guests and audience by believing in their potential. Biblical alignment, illuminating the principles in Oprah's story. Oprah's journey isn't just inspiring, it's illustrative. It gives us living, breathing color to timeless biblical blueprints. When we hold her story up to Scripture, we don't force a connection. We see the principles God etched into creation shining through her narrative. 1. The multiplier, the parable of the minas, Luke 19:11-27. This is the core text. A master gives 10 minas to one servant, 5 to another, and says, "Put this money to work until I come back." The faithful servants who generate a return are rewarded. Because you have been trustworthy in a very small matter, take charge of 10 cities. Alignment. Oprah was given her minas, her gift of connection, the failing show, a seed of trust. Her revolutionary act wasn't in receiving them, but in her faithful, strategic work to multiply them. She didn't hide her talent or play it safe. She invested it with courage, and the return was not just a hit show, but an empire of influence. Her story is a modern case study of the promise. Faithfulness with little leads to authority over much. 2. The king, the Esther anointing, Esther 4:14. Queen Esther was elevated to royalty for such a time as this, to use her position of dominion to intercede for and deliver her people. Alignment. Oprah's rise to unparalleled media dominion was not for her glory alone. It positioned her for such a time as this, a time when culture craved authenticity over artifice, healing over humiliation. Her kingly rule created a platform from which she could advocate for the marginalized, elevate critical conversations about abuse and trauma, and shift the very ethos of an industry. She used her throne for advocacy and uplift, a hallmark of godly kingship. 3. The priest, the ambassador, and the earthen vessel. The priestly role finds its resonance in two powerful New Testament images. The ambassador, 2 Corinthians 5:20. We are therefore Christ's ambassadors, as though God were making his appeal through us. An ambassador is a bridge, representing one kingdom to another, mediating messages of reconciliation. Alignment. Oprah acted as a cultural ambassador for concepts like healing, self-worth, and spiritual curiosity. She stood in the gap between lofty, often inaccessible wisdom and the everyday person, making the appeal for a better life through her. She represented the kingdom of empowerment to the nation of mainstream culture. The earthen vessel, 2 Corinthians 4:7. But we have this treasure in jars of clay to show that this all-surpassing power is from God and not from us. Alignment. This is perhaps the most profound alignment. Oprah's power was magnified, not diminished, by her transparency about her jar of clay, her poverty, her weight struggles, her trauma. Her brokenness didn't hide the treasure. It proved the treasure inside her, hope, resilience, was real and accessible to all. Furthermore, she called forth treasure in others. By seeing potential in her guests and audience, often before they saw it themselves, she acted out the priestly function of affirming God-given dignity and purpose in every person. The MKP takeaway. The Bible isn't a book of abstract ideals. It's an operational manual for human influence. In Oprah, we see that manual enacted. She is a living study in how faithful multiplication, responsible kingship, and bridge-building priesthood can shape history. Her story urges us to ask, what scriptural principle is waiting to be illuminated through your assignment? Your MKP challenge. So, Oprah multiplied her gift of connection into an empire, ruled her domain with visionary integrity, and bridged the gap between pain and possibility for millions. For the multiplier, what is the one mina, skill, relationship, idea you have been sitting on that you can invest and multiply this quarter? For the king, where is your sphere of assignment, your team, your project, your home? What one new law of integrity or excellence can you establish there this month? For the priest, who in your orbit needs you to build a bridge? Is it speaking hope to a discouraged colleague or creating a sacred space for honest dialogue in a meeting? I challenge you this week. Pick one of those roles, multiplier, king, or priest, and act on it deliberately. Comment below, which role, M, K, or P, do you most need to step into right now? Let's encourage each other. You may not have a TV show, but you have a voice. You have a domain. You have an assignment. Go and multiply, rule, and bridge right where you are.